What is up, guys? Welcome back to the pod. We are here moments after WWE's latest PLE Premium Live event. Getting used to saying that, or trying to. That, of course, is WrestleMania Backlash. It just ended moments ago, so I figured I was still kind of awake. I would sit down and kind of bust out the review show here now, and then within the next couple days, sit down and do another week in review type show, or just kind of catch up on some other things that have happened in the world of professional wrestling as well. But as always, I thank you guys so much for keeping me in your feed and subscribing and listening wherever you may be doing so. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, as always, at kickashpodcast_ or my personal Twitter at ASHMANNS. But we are not going to waste too much time here and get right into the card here. I hope you guys checked out the prediction preview show we did with the WWE podcast. Of course, the host being Matt. He is amazing. I got a chance to actually meet him in person finally when he came down to Tampa last month or so, maybe a little over a month ago now. Maybe actually 2 months now. It's crazy how quickly time flies. But anyway, very cool dude. So I hope you guys, like I said, were able to check out the show, and it was very fun to sit down and kind of shoot the breeze with Matt. I censored myself here because was trying to do so on Matt's podcast, but I don't have to do so on mine. So I will not be doing so going forward. But yeah, and he's such a cool dude, and he obviously has been following the world of professional wrestling for years and years and years, and his podcast, his show is massive. It's what I aspire for our show here to be like one day, possibly. So like I said, definitely check out the WWE podcast if you are not doing so already. But like I said, the prediction show was done here, so I figured I would sit down, like I said, and knock out a quick review show. I'd have to say the overall show as a whole, I would give it a B plus, maybe even an A minus, which I'm kind of surprised by it. But thinking back on it, going into it with Matt, I believe I rated it maybe a 6.5, 7 out of a scale of 10 on the excitement level for the overall show. And I think too, once you sit down and talk about it with a friend and kind of go through each match by match and kind of break it down and go over the stories and everything going into it, you kind of just obviously talk everything up a little bit more and kind of hype it up a little bit more. So it definitely, between that and sitting down for the show itself, even if it ends up being like a shit show, it's just something about sitting down watching a live pay-per-view / PLE, whatever you want to call it. So it's cool that WWE actually gave us a show tonight. That was actually a really good show in my opinion. Like I said, I would definitely give it a B minus, maybe. Yeah, I would say probably a B minus is or a B plus rather is probably solid. The match itself, or I'm sorry, the card itself was kind of so when you look at it on paper, and could have just been like a regular night on TV. But each match itself, and -1, which we'll kind of get into, each match itself kind of delivered, and I think all the competitors and all the wrestlers who were involved in it really put on a stellar show. Even if, like I said, you heard me on the WWE podcast for the prediction show, I wasn't really happy with the story going into the, for instance, Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair match. I kind of shit on it, and for multiple reasons, which you guys can listen there, but I'm sure if you guys have listened to me in the past, you understand why as well. But long story short, the story itself didn't make sense to me personally, and stemming back to the Royal Rumble itself with Ronda making her return and not challenging Becky Lynch, which I'm not going to get into right here, right now, but even that match itself had its own way of delivering. So I just shout out to everyone involved in the card itself. But we will dive right in with the opening show, or the opening card rather, being the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes facing off against Seth Rollins. Now, obviously, if you check out any sites or anything like that, or even on Twitter, you know these guys have been kind of knocking out some dark matches against each other since their WrestleMania match. So it definitely paid off, and I think the match itself here, I think the wrestling match itself was better, oddly enough, than the WrestleMania match. And I say oddly enough because the WrestleMania match that they had, I think was just stellar. But I think I say the wrestling part in tonight's WrestleMania Backlash match was a little bit better, but I think maybe the emotion in the WrestleMania match itself obviously made that match on the WrestleMania card just elevate it more. So I guess if I had to rank them, I would still put the Mania match proper higher, but I think in-ring wise, they knocked it out of the park here. And the crowd was with Cody too. The crowd was hot starting off here, and looking at the layout of the card, I think they were solid, and it was very smart to open up the card itself here with Cody and Seth, because obviously we know what these guys can do with a ring, but starting the card and the night off with these two guys and seeing and giving them enough time too. I think they went around 20 minutes or so, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe a little over 20 minutes. So it was pretty much the perfect amount of time and the perfect way to end the match as well. With Rollins trying to get a roll up on Cody and holding the ropes, and then Cody being able to roll through and held onto the tights rather, and Cody being able to hold on to Seth's tights. So it was kind of an interesting pin there. The broadcast team, I think, mentioned something specifically like turnabout being fair play, kind of justifying Cody reversing Seth, holding his tights and reversing through it, and kind of giving Seth the taste of his own medicine type thing, and getting the 1, 2, 3. It was interesting. Like I said, it was an interesting pin. Cody kind of like immediately when the match ended, kind of recognized and referenced like, okay, like I won, but maybe it wasn't the cleanest thing, but I get it why you'd be upset to Seth. And rightfully so. Seth was bitching to the referee and saying, like trying to justify, like, I guess restarting the match or something like that. But interesting way to get the W for Cody. I'm not mad at it though. My initial reaction, I was surprised, and I think that's kind of like the whole point here too. But the match itself was pretty high, and like I said, they were in where I didn't say, but they were in Rhode Island here tonight. But I did mention the crowd being super hot to start off the show here tonight, which always plays a big part into any show, obviously, but especially a big pay-per-view, PLE, whatever the event is. So shout out to the crowd that was in attendance too, because that was a pretty good way to start off the show. But leading forward, I think with the way this ended too, it kind of gives Seth an excuse to want, obviously, another rematch against Cody, and with the next pay-per-view or PLE, I was doing so great at it without calling it a pay-per-view. But with the next PLE being the Hell in a Cell, I'm just gonna say, just guys, you know what I mean. If I say pay-per-view or PLE, and it's getting kind of late too, so forgive me. But the next big show they're having is the Hell in a Cell premium live event. So I will be very interested to see, first of all, how many cell matches they throw on the card itself. If they limit it to, which I guess maybe they can get away with. I don't know. I think maybe it's kind of hard if you want to do a cell match for each of the main titles, right? But obviously with Roman having both of the heavyweight championships for the men, that would kind of just break it down to one, which that in itself is a whole other story. But you could probably make an excuse for having Seth and Cody in a cell match. And like I said with Matt on his show, I can't imagine a cell match with Cody involved and there not being blood. So if that happens, that is just going to be like one of the most surreal things to be witnessing. So I think that'll be a must-see match just to kind of see that visual if that does end up happening. So I think with the way that this ended, I think obviously, we probably would want a little bit more heat built into it, but these guys are phenomenal, and I love what they've been doing so far. So if this does lead to a Hell in a Cell match, then count me in. I think that'd be the perfect way to kind of blow off their little trilogy. The next match on the card, we had Omos versus Bobby Lashley, and of course Omos was accompanied by MVP. And look, if you know me, you know how I feel about Omos, and I'm going to try not to spend too much time on that here. And again, it's nothing personal with the dude, obviously, and then of course that should go without saying, but I just want to make sure it's clear. It's just, I can't take him seriously. Every time I see him, I feel like he's gonna, bust out laughing or some shit, and, hey, man, nothing wrong with that. It's just, I just can't take him seriously, and maybe it's just me, but It's just something about him, right? And again, I may be a little biased because I'm a huge Bobby Lashley fan, and Lashley and the pairing of Lashley and MVP, I think, was just so visually perfect, just perfect on so many levels, right? And just I'm not gonna get into it again here, but like I said, I was not a fan of them breaking up MVP and Lashley, even though I do get it if they're gonna be focusing on Omos and want to develop Omos as much as they can, then I get it, and MVP is probably the perfect person to team him up with, but it just sucks for Lashley, just my personal feelings, it just sucks for Lashley's character, but I will say, dude is a fucking badass, like, that entrance he has, with him standing on the podium type thing, whatever it is, and then the fireworks, it's just amazing. And then the theme itself, the music, it's just perfect. So shout out to whoever came up with that idea and the concept of it, the visual, everything. Just whatever team was involved with that, you guys just knocked it out. So kudos to that as well. But the match itself was good. I'm not gonna lie. I think this was another match that was better than the match that they had at WrestleMania. Which I think may even be the theme here, thinking back on, just kind of running through really quick, a mental checklist, it seems to be the theme for the match quality here, but which is a good thing, or maybe a bad thing if you're thinking about that it should have been better at WrestleMania, but anyway, Lashley, again, dude, like, he dominated the match in the sense that he obviously controlled the match, he led the match for the majority of the duration of the match, but he just really had just a presence to him. And then there was this one part in the match where Omos was running off with the ropes, and Lashley just lifted him up by just pure strength, lifted him up in the ring and just slammed him down. It was just insane. So just Bobby Lashley's a beast, and it's kind of scary to think and to see what this dude can do. But the ending of the match was kind of what Matt and I predicted, and I think I may have even stated specifically, which is kind of cool when you think about it, or maybe WWE is a little too predictable, but again, I get the direction they're going in, and the ending was when Lashley went to, it looked like, spear Omos. Omos had making a sidestep and threw Lashley into the ring post, which that casing, it just makes every impact, and every time any wrestler just slams their shoulder into the post itself with the LED boards, it just sounds brutal, but Lashley ended up doing just that, and MVP came out of nowhere and hit Lashley with his cane in either the throat or the face, but enough to just pretty much knock out Lashley, and Omos followed up with his finishing slam. I don't even really know what the name of it is, so forgive me. But of course he did score the pinfall, which kind of hurts my heart, I'm not going to lie. But I get it, like I said, I'm not going to spend too much more time on it. But this match was good, and I got to give Omos his credit where credit is due. It was good, it wasn't knockout of the park, or like a classic or anything like that, but it was what it was. And shout out to Omos for carrying his own in this, but I'll be kind of interested to see where they go from here, because I don't really want to see a third match out of these two guys. I think they, again, would it make sense? Yes, but I'm not really dying to see it. And so what if Bobby Lashley gets the victory and the best 2 out of 3 out of this series? Then what does that mean? He's a former world champion. Like, he doesn't need to be Omos. If Omos wins, then yeah, that's good for him. But that hurts worse for Bobby Lashley, in my opinion. So I don't know. I think they would kind of be best to just, oddly enough, and I don't see them probably doing this, but just bowing out at each side having a win and just move on with Omos and MVP, and then have Lashley do his own thing. Next up, we had Edge versus AJ Styles, and again, like I stated before, this match, in my opinion, was better than their match at WrestleMania. First of all, I have shit on Edge's new direction, and again, it's nothing personal or anything like that. It's just it just feels forced, and I don't know, like, especially since it was just so recent that we saw him with Beth teaming against The Miz and Maurice. Like, it was just, we know the real Edge at this point. We know the dude that he is. So I don't know. It's gonna take a lot for me to really really buy into it. Although with what happened later on, I may have a little bit more allowance into that, or whatever the term may be. But the match itself here was no pun intended, almost phenomenal. AJ Styles is just during the match itself, I was sitting there thinking like, man, like this guy's been doing this what 20 years now, like nonstop. It's just insane to think about. But the whole selling point of the match was the fact that Damian Priest was banned from ringside. So, of course, that means that he wouldn't be able to interfere. And so it would be a one-on-one match and really no reason for AJ to lose if you think about it, because AJ should be able to beat Edge, you know, and that's the whole point and what the whole proving point was going into it. But towards the end of the match, we did get an appearance from Damian Priest. He walked out, but he just stood on the aisle. He didn't technically get to the ringside itself. I guess it's debatable what you classify being ringside is. So there's that. But we did get an appearance from Finn Balor, who ran out and attacked Priest, so he kind of saved the day in that respect. But later on, we did get a masked individual who shoved AJ Styles off of the top rope, which allowed Edge to apply a crossface and then counter into a sleeper hold, which then, of course, ended up scoring the pinfall for Edge and getting the W here, or not the pinfall rather, but getting the W here when it was determined that AJ Styles was pretty much knocked out. I fucking knew the second the hooded individual was just standing at ringside, and just the frame and just I just knew. And then the second they got, especially when they got on the apron, it was just a no-brainer, right? But we ended up getting the revelation of who the hooded figure was after they both bended on one knee and kind of faced each other. Ended up being Rhea Ripley, guys. Rhea Ripley has joined Judgment Day. She revealed herself, removed the hood, has black hair now, black, all black everything. Just a beautiful visual, just fucking badass. Just everything about it was just perfect. And I'm not hot on the name of Judgment Day being the name of the faction, right? I think there's little things that I would tweak, but man, like I'm just so invested now. Like whatever they're gonna end up doing, like just yes, fuck yes, and I'm so here for it. Rhea Ripley deserves this, right? Like she's been doing whatever in the tag division for too long now, and I get it, and in my eyes, it's kind of like what they were envisioning with Shayna Baszler, right? Like kind of putting her in, like, I don't want to say a holding pattern, but keeping her on the show and giving her time to continue to wrestle and not be doing anything, right? But at the same time not being in bullshit matches or in matches that they know that she wasn't going to win in singles match wise. So now that she's kind of out on her own and specifically on her own, right? Not in a tag team, not doing anything else. This is just great. So I'm just totally stoked for this, and I just everything about it I'm here for. Next up on the card, we had Ronda Rousey versus the SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair in a I Quit match, and of course the only way to win this match is to say I quit. One of my fears going into the match was they were going to try to do some bullshit and have some like pre-recording like they did with Mankind and The Rock of either one of them saying I quit to kind of have a scapegoat and a way to get out of this match. But they didn't. I think this match ended up going maybe a little bit over 15 minutes or so. And it was good. I think still, in my opinion, my favorite match out of these two ladies has been their their Survivor Series match. What was that, 3 years ago now? Something like that. It's, again, time is weird. A weird concept. But of course, we did end up getting Ronda Rousey defeating Charlotte Flair when Charlotte Flair ended up saying, I quit. Charlotte Flair's arm ended up being hooked in an armbar through the chair. It was after, look, the match itself was good. I'm not going to crap on the match. And like I said, this match, and again, in my opinion, this match ended up being better than the WrestleMania match. So I think we're, 4 for 4 now or something crazy like that. Again, just my take, but I would be curious to know what you guys think as well. If the original of our rematches of the matches were better at WrestleMania, or if their second outings were better here at WrestleMania Backlash. And again, maybe that's the idea, right? The second bout that you go, you already have, like, the first match kinks out of the way, and the second match, you can go into it with a new set of eyes and 20/20 hindsight and all that shit. So that's probably a good thing. And again, not shitting on it. And this was a good match. So again, like I was saying at the beginning of this show, I wasn't really expecting much out of this match, and I was kind of shitting on the story going into it. I didn't really feel like Ronda wanted to really be here. And again, the real story for me is going to be how they frame Ronda going forward. And I fucking hope we get the return of Bayley this week on SmackDown, because if not, then I'm just like I'm just going to be really frustrated, I don't know what the excuse is at this point, especially with later on in the premium live event. I think it was Kayla Braxton who was backstage, who had did like a breaking news type segment backstage, stating that Charlotte Flair had broken some part of her arm. Don't remember exactly what portion of her arm they said that she broke, but long story short, her arm's broken, guys. So she's going to be out for some time. So I'm not sure if that means we're not going to get a Hell in a Cell rematch out of these ladies, and if that means we're going to be moving on with Ronda Rousey doing whatever. But to me, I was kind of expecting a Hell in a Cell match out of Flair and Rousey here. So if we don't get that, then I'm gonna be kind of surprised. I'm gonna be happy though, because I was one who was advocating that Flair needed some time off, for multiple reasons, and not for nothing, to kind of cut the reasons down short, she deserves time off. Doesn't really matter how you feel about her character or whatever, like, she has been running the SmackDown division for quite some time now, since she's been back, essentially. So she deserves some time off, and it's good to kind of get her out of the way and then have that spot be opened up, right? And that opportunity be there with her not there. So, like I said, if she is going to be taking some time off and they're not going to go to a rematch at Hell in a Cell, then I would love to see Bayley just be inserted in that spot and have them just kind of really build a feud going into possibly SummerSlam, because I think they could get a lot out of that. And Bayley alone, like, you guys, again, if you know me, you know how I feel about Bayley. And that's why I said it'll be interesting to see how they frame Ronda Rousey going forward from this as well, right? If you have Bayley returning, I don't see her being a heel, and I don't think you should force it. But that I'm going to hold off on that, because that's a whole other tangent that I am not going to get into right now. So, quick little note here. I normally don't comment on the video packages, because they're video packages that we all have seen numerous times, but an ad had aired for the Money in the Bank event that was featuring Cody Rhodes promoting, the event itself, which is going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Allegiant Stadium. That is going to be on a Saturday, which is pretty cool. I believe July 2nd. So Saturday, July 2nd in Las Vegas, Nevada, the Money in the Bank premium live event. But the most notable part of this was Cody had mentioned that one man and one woman will compete for a chance to main event WrestleMania, which is odd, because you're competing for a chance to win the briefcase. And if you win the briefcase, then yes, you do have the option to cash in at any time, which a la Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 31 cashed in the main event of WrestleMania, which is fucking smart. Like, I don't know why more people haven't done that since, but whatever. It's just very interesting. I love seeing Cody being a company guy and being kind of a face for the company now, and being the one out there doing media and stuff like that. But obviously it can't be a mistake, right? Because that shit has to get approved, and that, especially an ad promoting an event, isn't going to get approved without somebody seeing it. And if it does, and it was a mistake, then wow, that's a whole nother story. But it was just a little interesting side note that I saw, and I made a note here to kind of mention and see what you guys thought of as well. But next up, we had Madcap Moss versus Happy Corbin. Again, I'm becoming a fan of Madcap Moss, and it's fun to kind of be on the ride with Madcap, and as much as it kind of pains me again to say that and question myself, but I think it's cool, and I think it's cool to see his slow rise. If you guys saw the pre-show kickoff show, there was no matches, but he came out towards the end of it and kind of did like a quick little interview slash promo segment with the analyst there, and there was a lot of fans who were in support of Madcap, and I don't know if maybe they were just trying to cheer just to get their 15 seconds on TV or whatever it was, but he had a lot of support there, and he was really hyping the crowd up, and everyone seemed to be into him. But the match itself, I think, went maybe around 10 minutes, him against Corbin, of course, and I'm not gonna say, I don't know, this, there's a lot I could say about this match. It wasn't really what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be a little bit better than it was, but it didn't get as much heat coming from the match itself that I thought. But it wasn't a dud either, so I think it was what it was, but I was surprised that Madcap ended up getting the victory here and defeating Happy Corbin. I thought that surely Corbin was going to get a victory here, so we can continue this going forward. Again, seems to be the trend here. But yeah, I just kind of thought that they were going to have Corbin get the W here, kind of upset Moss, or get the cheat to win, or what have you. But I'll be curious to see how they continue this going forward. And again, it was just I don't know. It was a weird and kind of out of nowhere finish. And I guess maybe that's the point too. And I'm not hating on that, but I was just kind of surprised. And finally, in your main event, we had the 6-man tag match, which of course had the Bloodline versus RK Bro and Drew McIntyre. Look, okay, first I'm just gonna say I'm still surprised that they didn't add any type of stipulation to this match or anything. Even a last minute thing on SmackDown this past Friday, or even like tweet or something, but it was the whole build to the unification of the tag titles, like the bait and switch with that, and then the change to the 6-man tag, and then pretty much it just being, the match itself felt like a house card show, right? Or a house card main event with a 6-man match. And don't get me wrong, it ended up being a pretty fun match, and the crowd was obviously into it, and I'm not shitting on it at all, but it just was kind of weird. Like, even though I don't think, and I don't know, maybe that kind of defeats the purpose, what I'm about to say, but even though the majority of us would have known that there was no chance that the Bloodline would have lost if the titles were on the line, I just think it would have kind of added just a little bit more to it. But again, just my opinion, the match itself was still very stellar. It's fun to see this version of Randy Orton and to see him kind of in the legacy role, but still be almost in the prime of his career, which is crazy to think about since he's been here for 20 fucking years now, which is just, dude, like, he doesn't age, like, he just seems to get better and better as he gets older in the wrestling world, so shout out to him. I would be remiss, though, if I continued on without saying that the normal, how you guys know when Riddle makes his entrance and he kicks off his flip-flops, and they normally do, like, the birds or whatever weird shit flies out. Tonight they had animated grasshoppers appearing when he kicked off his flip-flops, so I hope none of you guys were taking any substances or under any type of influence or anything like that, because that shit just gets creepier and creepier by the PLE. So we'll see what the next one has, but the match itself, like I said, was very fun, and I love the build to Reigns finally getting involved in the match. There was a few moments where he would get into the match, but he wouldn't actually get physical. He got in and went face-to-face with McIntyre, but then ended up tagging Jimmy, I think it was. Ended up towards the end of the match getting a nice slam from, I think it was a Uranagi slam on to McIntyre through the announce table. So the match was just very fast-paced and just very fun. But again, there's just something about it, and I think I'll say here too. I don't know if you guys saw it on Twitter. I believe it was from Saturday night. Pretty sure it was from Saturday night. They were in Trenton, New Jersey, and Roman Reigns had gotten onto the mic after the show and said pretty much that he didn't know how much longer he was going to be doing the same, essentially like the same schedule, or some things are going to be changing for him soon. So whether or not that means he's going to be in the wrestling world, which we'll get into maybe later on this week, or if he's just not going to be on his full-time schedule, it's just fun to see the journey that Reigns has been on. And we all, as much as I kind of feel like a hypocrite now for saying this, but we all need to appreciate Reigns now and acknowledge him, right? And I say that because I was a hater of Reigns when in the peak and the prime of it, right? Like I was done cheering, or I was done of him being forced down our throats and being forced to be number one, and just being the face of the company when there were so many other people that we wanted to be the face of the company, right? And it wasn't even that we didn't necessarily want him, we just didn't want him as they were positioning him. So to see where he's at now and the reign that he has been on, maybe pun intended, and just to see the emotion and the way that he kind of dictates and controls the matches, and tonight was very prominent and very apparent to me with guys like Randy Orton in the ring, and to see that Reigns was still kind of dictating and controlling the match. It was just fun to see, but of course Reigns did end up getting the victory for his team, pinning Riddle, which was a little, I'm not going to say surprising, but I don't know, just seeing Riddle get pinned was kind of a bummer, even though I knew, like I said, the Bloodline was going to get the W here, but it'll be interesting to see what they do for Reigns going forward with, of course, being the unified champion. He has to defend the titles at the next pay-per-view, right, or the next PLE. He can't get away with not defending them there, so it'll be interesting to see if they go to Drew McIntyre now, or if they go back to Shinsuke and kind of get something out of that, which I think they very well could, or what they end up doing, because I think it would be kind of pointless for them to go to Drew for Hell in a Cell when they can hold Drew off for the Clash at the Castle, I think is the name of it, for their September 3rd premium. I don't know if that's a premium. I'm assuming it is, since it has a name, but the event that they're having in the UK, so that'll definitely be a big show, and I think it's pretty obvious that either Drew will be facing Roman Reigns or facing maybe Tyson Fury if they're able to get him. But we'll see how that ends up shaking out. I think the direction that they take Hell in a Cell will kind of give us a foreshadow on what may be to come for the Clash at the Castle. But thank you guys so much for checking out tonight's show. I hope you guys enjoy the WrestleMania Backlash. Let me know what you guys think on Twitter at ASHMANNS and the show's Twitter page at KickAshPodcast_. And I hope you guys have a fantastic week. Thank you guys again, and take care.